All right, folks, we got some great news. A Utah judge just tossed out the Republicans' map in the state and have forced a redraw that basically guarantees one Democratic seat, which there are 0 right now. So this is a +1 for Democrats to go along with the +5 we're going to get from California. So in a weird way, Utah is joining California in the fight to fight back against these Texas illegal gerrymanders. So that gives us a +6. Maryland's looking at it. Illinois is looking at it. So we are fighting back on this ridiculous gerrymander situation. So this helps our case for actually taking back the House next year, which is wonderful, wonderful news. But we have to keep fighting back against the Republican gerrymanders. So if you live in a state where they are trying to do this, call your representatives, tell them no, 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 no. Things are looking better and better for Democrats retaking the House next year and maybe even the Senate.
So I can't even believe I'm saying this right now, but it looks like the Democrats were actually hugely successful as they quietly fought back against the Republican attempt to rig the maps for the 2026 midterms. If you remember, the story from just a few months ago was that Republicans were gerrymandering all of these districts in these states that were going to bring all these new seats to their party and totally screw over the Democrats in the 2026 midterms. Texas, of course, became a huge focal point of all this as they decided randomly to start redistricting their entire state to give Republicans 5 more seats. Or so they thought. I'll get back to that in a moment. So today we got the big news that Democrats scored a huge redistricting victory in Utah as a judge overruled the Republican maps as being illegal and against the Constitution, and they ordered a new map which would draw a Democratic district in a Harris +24 area. And as election analyst David Wasserman notes, between Ohio, Kansas, California, Virginia, and now this huge win in Utah, Democrats have quietly strung together an impressive streak of victories over the past few weeks that have surprisingly pushed the mid-decade redistricting war closer to a draw. Now let's go back to Texas for a second. People are starting to call that gerrymander by the Republicans a dummy-mander. Why? Because it turns out a lot of those districts that they drew, the new districts, they relied on the 2024 election trends amongst Latinos. But the recent elections last Tuesday showed that Latinos have swung back to the Democrats. So they may have actually screwed themselves with their new seats, and they are not gaining nearly as much power as they thought that they were. But with Texas Republicans pushing forward with that scheme, that enabled Governor Gavin Newsom to do the redistricting here in California and pass Prop 50 by massive margins, gaining Democrats many seats. So at the end of the day, with all the games that Republicans tried to play, Dave Wasserman notes that Republicans really only have an advantage now by like half a seat. Kevin Kiley, one of the representatives in California who's going to be drawn out of his district, he's probably going to be out of a job soon, posted the following today, basically acknowledging defeat. He said, "I warned the speaker for months that a redistricting war was 1, bad for the country, 2, unpopular with members on both sides, and 3, likely to end as a wash. Yet he cheered it on rather than try to stop it." I mean, play stupid games, win stupid prizes, I guess. We're going to keep following all the news. Make sure you're following this account, spread the word, and listen to the Midas Touch podcast anywhere you get audio podcasts.
Breaking news. Judge strikes down Republican gerrymandered congressional districts in Utah. What? Yes. Judge Diana Gibson struck down overnight the gerrymandered map drawn by the Republican legislature. In turn, she uses another map that will give a seat to the Democrats. What? Yes, her map will give the Democrats actually a gain of a seat in a district in the Salt Lake area that voted over 20 points for Kamala Harris. What? You know Mike Johnson and the Republicans and Trump are going to be bent out of shape about this. They were not expecting Utah to give the Democrats a congressional seat. Next year, 2026, every single congressional seat matters. The Republicans only lead by 5 seats right now, so anywhere that we can gain an extra seat is huge. So spread the good news. The Democrats will gain a congressional seat in Utah, and this was unexpected. Love to hear from my Democrats, my MAGAs, my crazies, my cuckoos, and my burned light bulbs. A little more good news.
We have major news right now. Republicans are waking up furious, especially Mike Johnson, after a significant court ruling in Utah ensured that Democrats will take an additional House seat heading into the 2026 midterm elections. There was a case in Utah over the future of Utah's congressional maps. The legislature proposed a map in which Republicans would potentially hold all 4 seats. But a Utah judge at literally like 2, 3 a.m. in the morning ruled that no, we're not going to approve the legislature's map. We're going to approve a different map which guarantees Democrats a pickup in Utah, a seat that voted for Kamala Harris in 2024 by over 20 points. And that will ensure that Democrats have yet another pickup opportunity heading into the 2026 midterms to counteract what happened in Texas and other gerrymandering across the nation. This was unexpected and a major win for Democrats. Spread the word. Follow along for all the news you need to know about.
The judge just blew up Utah's congressional map. Here's why that matters for 2026. I'm Brian Schott. I'm an independent journalist, and I've been covering Utah politics for more than 25 years. To get more stories like this, give me a follow and like this video. So late Monday night, right before midnight, 3rd District Judge Diana Gibson tossed out a congressional map proposed by Utah's Republican-controlled legislature. She ruled that it was an extreme partisan outlier under Proposition 4, which is the anti-gerrymandering ballot initiative that was approved by Utah voters back in 2018. Instead of the legislature's map, the judge approved a map that was proposed by the plaintiffs in the lawsuit challenging Utah's congressional maps as an unconstitutional gerrymander. That map creates a heavily Democratic district centered on Salt Lake County. As you can see, it looks like a blue donut hole surrounded by 3 solidly Republican districts. In fact, under the lines on this new map, the Democratic-leaning district would have voted for Kamala Harris in the 2024 election by a little more than 23 points. The remaining 3 seats still lean heavily Republican. So why did the judge throw out the legislature's map? Well, it all comes down to data. The legislature's map produced 4 districts that favored Republican candidates. But simulations conducted by experts, that result happened less than 1% of the time. It was actually 0.06% of the time. Plus, the map used partisan data, which is not allowed under the guidelines of Proposition 4. Now, this process is far from over. The legislature will likely appeal the judge's decision, and they're hoping that a court will block this map or replace it with a map more favorable to Republicans, either the map they submitted to the court or the 2021 map that Judge Gibson threw out earlier this year. But if this map sticks, it's going to completely scramble Utah's electoral landscape. First, the 4 incumbent Republicans in Utah's congressional delegation will have to decide who runs where. Representative Blake Moore's home actually falls within that new Salt Lake County district, but he's expected to run for re-election in the district that covers the northern part of the state. Representative Burgess Owens makes his home inside the boundaries of what would be the 4th district on this map, while Representative Mike Kennedy and Representative Celeste Malloy both live in the 3rd district, which wraps around the eastern and southern part of the state. Somebody will have to run in that Democrat-heavy district in Salt Lake County, which means they'll have a fight on their hands, and they, more likely than not, will lose their seat in Congress. Meanwhile, for Democrats, you can expect a stampede of candidates. Former Congressman Ben McAdams is expected to officially launch his campaign later this week, and at least 7 other Democratic candidates have already filed paperwork to run or officially launch their campaigns, and you'll probably see a lot more decide to get into this race because of this unexpected seat that favors a Democratic candidate. If you want more, you can find a full breakdown of the map and what it means at my website, utahpolitics.news.
We have some huge news right now. Republicans are waking up furious, especially Mike Johnson and those in Congress, after a Utah court dropped a bombshell, unexpected ruling in the past several hours, handing Democrats a seat in the House of Representatives. No one expected Utah to give Democrats an additional congressional seat as this gerrymandering battle plays out across the nation. And yet a Utah court shocked everyone, including Democrats, in issuing a ruling that will ensure Democrats pick up a seat in the House of Representatives in Utah, in the Salt Lake City area, a seat that voted for Vice President Kamala Harris by 24 points. We've been talking a lot about the gerrymandering efforts in Texas, Prop 50 in California, what states like North Carolina are doing. But not many people were talking about what Utah was doing, because everyone thought that it was a foregone conclusion that Republicans would be successful in their new map draw that would help them keep all 4 seats in Utah. It was pretty much, like I said, a foregone conclusion. But now a Utah court has surprised everyone. And I want to read this ruling with you right now. It was a ruling on the plaintiff's motion for preliminary injunction on count 16, alleging that SB 1011 violates the people's fundamental right to alter or reform their government under the Utah Constitution. It's granted. The court hereby orders the enforcement of SB 101 or 1011 is preliminarily enjoined. Now, if you read this ruling, it essentially continues to talk about how the court is approving plaintiff's map 1, if you see in bullet point number 5, as the judicial remedy to meet the lieutenant governor's November 10, 2025 deadline to have a congressional plan that complies with both federal and Utah law in place in order to prepare for the 2026 elections. Then if you go down to point 6, the court hereby orders that map 1 be implemented for use in Utah's congressional elections. The court orders the lieutenant governor as Utah's chief election officer to implement and administer all future congressional elections in Utah in accordance with map 1 as a judicially approved congressional plan until another validly enacted legislative plan takes effect or as otherwise ordered by an appellate court. So what this means, there were multiple maps that were on the table. Map 4 was the Republican Party's plan. Map 1 was the Democratic Party's plan. No one thought map 1 had a chance. Everyone thought it was a foregone conclusion that map 4 would just be the map that the court goes with. That's what the legislative branch drew. And so this map would have ensured that Republicans keep all 4 seats. Now, the map would have drawn 2 Republican seats that Trump won by less than 10 points, so they were flippable. But overall, this was a favorable map to Republicans. Not so fast. The court said, we're going to go with map 1. We're going to go with what the plaintiffs want. And we're going to make sure that Democrats 100% pick up a seat in Utah, a state that no one thought Democrats really had a chance. And before I continue, please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe or send a one-time donation via Venmo to Aaron-Parnas to support my work. This is a major ruling because it gives Democrats a heads up in the gerrymandering efforts around the country. Democrats are now scheduled to pick up more seats than Republicans in the House of Representatives if all things considered stay as the status quo. And so you're in a situation where the plan by Texas Republicans completely backfired. And Donald Trump, on his part, woke up this morning and he didn't seem happy, whether about this or really anything else that was happening. He spent the morning reposting multiple fake Truth Social memes talking about the racist birther conspiracy, claiming Barack Obama wasn't born in the United States again, suggesting that his presidency should carry an asterisk. The posts that he amplified included images implying Obama used a false name, that Obama wasn't Christian. He also went on to repost a meme saying that Barack and Michelle Obama were the problem for worsening racism in America, claiming they set America back 100 years. Donald Trump spent the morning reposting these racist memes, and it's because he's not happy with where things are going right now in the country. He's not happy with the Utah decision. He's also not happy because his newly brokered ceasefire agreement between Thailand and Cambodia has completely fallen apart. The Thailand government announced that it will be suspending military cooperation with Cambodia after a landmine incident injured Thai soldiers. National Security Council halts prisoner return, issues diplomatic protests, and authorizes military operations to protect sovereignty. Witness states that the United States and Malaysia to be notified. Thailand and Cambodia, this is one of the big peace agreements that Donald Trump said, one of his 8 or 9, however many peace agreements he wanted. It fell apart. It's over. And this isn't the only one. The peace agreement in Gaza is actually also hanging on by a thread right now, as UNICEF is alleging that Israel is refusing and blocking nearly 1.6 million syringes, vaccine fridges, and more, including infant formula, from coming into the country, as UNICEF really needs to run a major vaccination campaign for young children in Gaza. The items have been held in customs since August for 3 months as, quote, dual use, are slowing efforts to reach tens of thousands of kids who missed routine shots during the war. UNICEF has begun the first round of vaccinations, but warns that it cannot continue without the withheld equipment, while Israel refuses to comment on the claim. And according to Politico right now, internal documents shared with U.S. officials reveal deep worries inside the Trump administration that its Gaza peace deal may soon unravel, because right now there's no clear plan for carrying out parts of the agreement. Slides were presented at a major symposium in Israel highlighting major obstacles, such as deploying a still undefined international stabilization force, rebuilding shattered governance and security institutions, and managing internal Israeli resistance to the ongoing withdrawal that is currently happening in Gaza. So Donald Trump is not happy. These courts are ruling against him. Right now, his ceasefires across the world are falling apart. And what is he doing? He's lashing out on the American people, saying that he's going to reform SNAP. I want you to watch this with me.
For the people who really need them? It's meant for people. And you know what it does is it really puts the country at jeopardy. People that need it have to get it. I'm all for it. But people that are able-bodied can do a job. They leave their job because they figure they can pick this up. It's easier. That's not the purpose of it.
So Donald Trump is clearly thinking about reforming SNAP, pulling back SNAP benefits from Americans. And it comes as Senate Democrats made the deal with Senate Republicans late last night. The bill passed. It now goes to the House of Representatives to reopen the government. But remember, the deal is made on a promise for a vote on the Affordable Care Act subsidies. And last night, Tammy Baldwin put forth an amendment to extend the subsidies for 1 year, which is what will be on the table in December in this vote. And well, Republicans rejected it 53-47 in a party line vote. So folks, there is no guarantee, probably not, honestly, that these subsidies will ever be extended. So that's all the news right now. It's a very busy news morning for what it's worth. Make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to support my work. And I will have much more updates for you very soon. So stay tuned for more.
We got to digest all of the reaction pieces yesterday in response to the deal that 8 Senate Democrats made with Republicans to end the government shutdown. And there are some rational, logic-based responses and reactions to that. There are a lot of emotional responses to that. You know, I listened to Tim Miller and Will Salatin at the Bulwark yesterday making the argument that Democrats actually won the shutdown fight. And they had reasons for that. And you can contrast that with like pieces from Jonathan Chait, Andrew Egger, arguing Democrats lost this round. And one thing that has jumped out at me in most of these pieces is that, well, at least Democrats get to hang this stuff around the necks of Republicans heading into the 2026 midterms.
Oh, yeah.
And we'll come back to that in a second. But it's interesting to me that, you know, the people who absolutely do not believe that they lost this shutdown battle are Republicans in the House, Republicans in the Senate, and Donald Trump. They're sitting back laughing at Democrats. And I think in this environment, that can't be discounted. That can't be discounted. Because Donald Trump used the intentional starvation of poor Americans as leverage. He has no threshold of pain for when that becomes too uncomfortable for him, because he doesn't give a fuck about anybody but himself. And he knows in reality that he's never going to be on another ballot ever again. But, you know, coming back to my point about, well, at least we'll get to use this in the midterms. People are acting like the midterms are actually going to be the midterms. They're acting like the midterm elections are going to have any semblance of normalcy to them in how those elections are conducted, how those ballots are counted. Republicans, Donald Trump, members of his administration, Republicans in the House and the Senate are going to spend the next year passing legislation and engaging in all forms of executive orders in a campaign of voter suppression for the midterms. They want to get rid of mail-in ballots. They want to get rid of voting machines. They want to get rid of extended periods of time for voting. They want voting in person on one day, election day. And if you can't make it, you don't vote. They want to make it easier to throw out people's ballots that have already been cast. They want to make it harder for people to vote, period. Even though There have been multiple studies that have shown that if we had basically like universal voting on Election Day in 2024, Donald Trump would have won by a wider margin than he already did. But people are acting like the midterms are going to be the midterms. And they're just not. These midterm elections are going to be anything but free and fair elections. And Republicans are going to spend the next year doing absolutely everything they can to make sure that that's the case. Which brings me around to the pardons that Donald Trump issued on Sunday night. He pardoned 70 or 75 people who had helped him try to overturn the 2020 election. He pardoned all of his attorneys, Sidney Powell, Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, Little Kenny Chesbro, Jenna what's-her-name, the one who caught COVID from one of Rudy Giuliani's fart clouds. He pardoned all of those people. Now, why did he do that? There was no threat that any of those people were going to be federally prosecuted for the things that they did in 2020. Pam Bondi's not going to go after them and get indictments. Hell, she was on Fox News pushing 2020 election conspiracy theories as much as the rest of them. Donald Trump pardoned those people as a signal. It's a preemptive signal to the people that he's going to ask to help him steal the 2026 midterms. And if they do it, he will pardon them. That was the point of those pardons that he issued Sunday night. Donald Trump is transactional. And we all saw that when January 6th didn't work, Donald Trump was still in office for 2 weeks. He didn't pardon any of the people he pardoned Sunday night during that 2-week period of time. He didn't pardon any of the insurrectionists at the Capitol during that 2-week period of time because they had all failed. They were unsuccessful in their end of the transaction. And so why would he reward failure with a pardon? Well, on his first day in his second term, he pardoned all the insurrectionists. That was a signal. That was a signal to the Proud Boys. That was a signal to the Oath Keepers. It was a signal to ICE agents. And now he has pardoned his White House Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, all of his attorneys, and everybody else who worked inside his administration to help him overturn the 2020 election. Those are signals that the people who help him in his quest to steal the 2026 election midterms, that they will get pardons. So it's like, the midterms are not going to be the midterms, man. They're going to be unlike any other midterm elections this country has ever seen, in a bad way. Anyway, but, you know, in the meantime, over the next year, how many millions of Americans are going to lose their health insurance coverage? The body count from that's not going to be zero. And that's the point of the last 40 days. And using SNAP benefits and things like that, Republicans don't give a shit about causing the deaths of Americans. They don't care. They don't care.